Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Michelle Dutrissa and I'm an independent demonstrator with Stamping Up here in New South Wales, Australia. Now, if someone could please just let me know that they can hear me okay, because I'm using a different mic than I normally would do, that would be fantastic. Now, please jump on and say hello. It's always good to see where people are from, so let me know where you're from. And it's also good to know that there are people here watching us. You can leave comments. If I don't see your comment, I will get back to it after the video has finished. So I hope you're all having a wonderful day, and I hope you're ready for a little bit of crafting. So let me just flip my camera down so we can see my desk for you. Won't be in one moment. Okay, so I hope we can see that all okay. I'm just making a few little changes at the moment with cameras and different things. Hi, Kay, thank you. I hope you can hear me okay. Okay, so we're going to play today with this stamp set called Pretty Medallion. Now, this is a stamp set that it's in the annual catalogue, and I completely missed it when I first got the catalogue and was going through, and found it by seeing some other things that people had done and thought, oh, I've got to get hold of that. I love it. It is a large stamp, so it is a full-size stamp. It is actually bigger than the cardstock, our standard card size. Hi, Deborah. How are you? It's great to have you joining us as well. And Carol from Queensland, lovely. It's really good seeing people jumping on and joining me today. So that's fantastic. So I thought we'd have a play with this. I'm just going to show you, this is a card I made last week, and I don't know whether you can actually see that. But what I have done is I have embossed the with clear embossing powder the stamp on there, and you can see that we don't quite make the edges of the stamp. It is quite a large stamp width-wise. It'd be fantastic in a square card. But again, today I'm just doing the standard size, and I'm going to step this up a little bit. So all I've done here is I've actually stamped the stamp using clear embossing powder, and then heat embossed it and just used a sponge to colour in the background. So my card colour here is smoky slate, and I've done a background of your basic grey. So I'm going to use exactly the same colours except for my inking. I'm going to use a different sentiment, and then I'm going to hopefully try to step this up a little bit and just see what else we can use by using some other embellishments as well on top of it. So let's get started. So this is our stamp set. I am using the Stamparatus to stamp this because it is, as I said, that's the size of it there. It is a large stamp, and I find it so much easier with using the Stamparatus. Now, I will go through all the measurements of the cardstock and everything as I'm going along. I'm hoping in the next few weeks I'm going to get myself a little bit organised so that I can put up a picture view of all the measurements so you can actually write them down. But my card base here, which I'm using the smoky slate for, is only 9.7 by 14.1. So it's the smallest size that I tend to use. I sort of have set sizes. My card base is always about 10.5 by 29.9, and I score it at 14.9. Then my next piece down is 0.5 centimetre smaller all the way around. So that would be 14.4 by 10 centimetres. And then I usually have a 3 millimetre difference with the next one, and that's where I've gone to the 9.7 by the 14.1. So that's what I'm using here. Now that's my standard go-to measurements for every card or most cards that I do. So as this one here, as I said, that's my standard. So I've got my 14.9 like the card actual size once it's folded in half is 14.9 by 10.5. Then I go down that 1/2 centimetre, which is your 10 by 14.4, and then I go down 3 millimetres, which is your 9.7 by your 4.1. So that's my standard, and it's really up to you. There's no hard and fast rule what sizes you must do. I know some people like going down in increments of 1/2 centimetre each time. I like just to give that peak of colour rather than having another solid colour when I come to my matting. So that's just my choice. But you will find that most of my cards where I'm just using 3 pieces of cardstock and making a very simple card, they're the measurements I always tend to use. I've also got a little piece of the basic white just to make a sentiment. So I haven't cut this to any particular size. It was just a scrap that I had. I know it's 10 centimeters in width, probably around about, yeah, it's about 3.5 centimeters in width that way, but that is going to get cut down. And I'm looking at using the happy birthday sentiment from the Happiness Abounds stamp set. So that's from the Hughes, oh golly, my words aren't coming out today. Hughes of Happiness stamp suite that sentiment comes from. So let's get started with this. So we're going to be doing some embossing. So I've got my embossing buddy here with me. So pleased you can now get this in our mini catalogue, and I'm just going to give this a good pat all over without trying to move this too much. And I will explain what I've got here in a moment. Because it is such a large stamp, I thought the magnets, if I use the magnets to hold this in place, it may tend to interfere with the stamp so much a bit. So I've used just some post-it note tape just to hold those down. Now what I also have underneath here, I've also got a couple of layers of paper, my silicone mat. Now I just find that this just gives me that little bit extra height. It's only just a tiny weeny little bit, because really we shouldn't need it with using the red rubber stamps, but I just find it's just helpful having that there. It just gives me that little bit extra height to make sure that I get contact between my stamp and my cardstock. So I've positioned my cardstock where I want it to go. I'm holding it in place with the tape, and as I said, that's just because this stamp actually covers that whole piece of cardstock, and I just felt that if I use the magnet, it could tend to interfere a little bit because there is a bit of height there. So you could use washi tape if you wanted to. Get rid of that magnet, keeps on being drawn to that. I just find that this tape, the post-it note tape, and I picked it up from Officeworks here in Australia. And it comes, that's how it comes, just like that. It's called Page Markers. It's by Burroughs. And yeah, you get 5 different colors in there. And I just use that for when I'm doing my die cutting or anything. I just find it's really handy to have. So that's holding that in position. I've positioned my stamp where I want it on there. And now I've put my stamping buddy over the top. So let's pop some Versamark onto our stamp. And it's easier with this to take your stamp pad to your stamp. Now I'm giving this a really good stamp up. And the beauty, and actually I might just use this just to keep this paper here in place. So I'm just going to use my magnet there just to keep this sheet underneath. Let me square that up properly, just in place. Beauty of using your Stamparatus is that if I miss an area and I have to restamp, hopefully it'll go back and I can restamp in exactly the same spot because it is a repositioner. So I'm just going to grab here this is my pressure block that I've made using one of our Stampin' Up blocks, and I've just added some felt that you can put underneath your furniture. I bought that at the reject shop, and because it is still a little bit abrasive, I've just attached a piece of felt on top. So this comes in felt sheets. I don't have it handy here at the moment. Comes in about an A5 size. I get it from the reject shop. Only costs a couple of dollars. It's adhesive on one side, and I've just glued that to my block, and I'm using a D size block here. And then, as I said, I actually just put some of our adhesive sheets on top of the felt here to join these two together. So I'm not using a liquid glue that could come through and maybe even make this felt here on top a little bit harder. So, yeah, it's very good, and you'll see how I use that. So let's just close this up. And what this does is acts as a pressure, so you can hold the block and rub pressure all over your stamped area. Just helps to give you a nice even pressure on that. Might make it a little bit easier rather than rubbing our hands all over it. Let's just see how that has gone. I might just put another layer of ink on top of that. Just want to make sure I get really good surface coverage with this Versamark. So let's just try this again. Give this a really good rub, making sure we're getting very, very good contact. And yes, I am happy with that. Okay. So let's pop that out of the road. We can take all of this off. Probably could have moved this a little bit more. It wasn't quite centered. I usually tend to like things centered very much, but this is a little bit off, but that's okay because I'm going to step it up by adding hopefully some flowers to this to see if we can come up with just use this more as a background rather than as a feature on this card. So I've got my clear embossing powder here. Let's sprinkle this on. Now, of course, you could cut your cardstock larger and then stamp your image and then cut it down to where you want it to go. Just want to make sure I get enough powder on this. I think this is just such a beautiful stamp. Of course, you can use your brush just to brush away some of those bits around. I might just put a little bit more. I think I've got quite good coverage there, so let's just pop that to one side. I'll fix all that up later. Bring in my heat gun here. Sorry about the noise. And as you can see, the colour, this is starting to change. I don't know whether you can see that too well. There might be a bit too much glare. Okay, so that image now has really popped. We've gone from matte with the embossing powder to that lovely shiny surface of the gloss of the embossing powder. So what we're going to do now is like a resist, where we're going to go over using our blending brushes. We're going to brush some color onto this, and that's going to resist those areas where the embossing powder is. So the color I've chosen this time on the card that I had before, I think I used on that the Parakeet Party, and this time I'm going to use the Coastal Cabana, because I want a little bit of a softer color. Now you could make this as strong or as light as you want. And I'm just going to get quite a bit of ink there. Now when I hold my brushes, I always hold it with the 3 fingers there, excuse me, and then I hold my thumb and my upper finger there holding the brush head, because there's a lot of spring there in that the neck there, and it's not that big, and I find I've got more control if I hold it like that and with my fingers there. Now we're going to start off, just take a little bit of that surface ink off, and we're going to go into the middle here and just work in a circular motion. Now you may have to go over this quite a few times just to get the intensity of color that you want, and it's really up to you how dark you want it. We just do want this, so then it's going to show up on that smoky slate. And you can see that color is now starting to come. We want it to blend out at the edges. We don't want any sharp edges on this. We want it to sort of to blend back into that smoky slate. So I am concentrating my color through the center and then taking it out to the widest width. So again, just coming back into the center where I want that depth of color, taking it right out, just going around in that circular motion. So well, that's about all the color I want. I'm just going to grab, normally I would say a tissue, but I've only got paper towel here. And all I want to do is just brush off some of that excess ink that could be sitting on those embossed areas. As you can see, there's a bit there coming off, and just give that just a light rub down, and I'm quite happy with that. It's just got a little bit of color in there, so it's just not the grey. And I'm just, let me bring that up a little bit. I'm hoping you can see that. But it's just given us a very soft coloured centre to that medallion. Now this is just a very basic and simple card. So here's my card base, which I said I cut at 29.9 centimetres, and it's 10.5 centimetres wide. It's basically, it's half a piece of your A4 cardstock. I've scored that at 14.9, and I'm going to fold that in half, so then my mountain goes on the inside, and get my bone folder and just burnish that fold. So we've got a nice crisp fold there. I've got my card mat here, and I'm going to adhere my card front onto my mat. Now I've done something a little bit wrong here. I'm going to need to trim something down. So let me just grab my piece here and just see what I've measured here. I've measured that one at, I've measured that one a little bit too small. So let's just grab another piece of my white. So there's my quarter sheet. Let's just trim this down. So that's a quarter sheet there. So we want this one at 14.4. by 10. So that now should be 3 millimeters difference between that one and that. That's right. And I'm going to just do the same with this other piece, because this is going to go on the inside of my card. 14.4. I think I made the mistake, because generally I would cut my basic white down to that smaller one, but this time I'm using it as my mat, not as my main piece of my card. So let me just have a look and make sure. Just check my measurements. That's 10, and that's 3 millimeters smaller. So we're going to put some adhesive on the back here. Now, because we're using that medallion stamp, we don't need to, like, it's more of a would normally be more of a feature type piece, but we're going to, as I said, use it as our background. So let me flip that over and press that down. So how's the weather where you are? Went outside this morning with a friend, and we've had a lovely morning walking around. Now that's just slipped that little bit out, but by using the multi-purpose glue, I can slip that back into place. So I'll make sure that's nice and firm. That's good. And then that is going to go onto our card front here. Now it's up to you whether you want to put dimensionals on the back, or whether you want to just glue that straight down. I'm actually going to glue this straight down today, because I'm going to add some dimensionals onto the other pieces that I want to add to this card to step it up. I'll just give that a bit of a rub as well, just to make sure that glue is spread. Yep, I'm happy with that. Now we need that strip. Whoops, let's just get rid of all these bits and pieces. We don't need that getting stuck. So as I said, I'm going to use the happy birthday from that from the stamp set from the Hues of Happiness, which is the Happiness Abounds. So I'm using this happy birthday because I really love that font. And I'm going to stamp this in Night of Navy. I didn't want to go black, and I didn't want to necessarily go the basic grey either. I'm going to try to stamp this as straight as I possibly can, because I am going to trim this down and in the center. So just there like that. And we're going to give that a bit of a trim with our trimmer. So let me just bring in my little guillotine here. Now, of course, I need to make myself that little handle that I like to have. Now, this piece here is already 10 centimeters wide, and I'm quite happy with the fact that I've stamped that pretty much in the middle. I do want to give myself some sort of width on this, so I'm looking at cutting this probably about that wide, which is about 1.5 centimeters in width. So I didn't need that little handle piece this time round, which is good. So we'll just pop those to one side. Finished with that. and we're going to bring our card in. Now, that fits there, but that's not where I'm going to finish this. What I have done is I have been fussy cutting some of the papers from that Hues of Happiness. So what I want to do is that's just going to sit there for the moment. That's probably going to end up on dimensionals. Excuse me. But I do want to add some of these. Now, I've used the dies to cut these out. So I've pre-done all of that because just sort of make it easier. And one day I just sat there and just pre-cut everything. And what I've done, I have these plastic envelopes because I take my dies out of these envelopes and put my dies in with a stamp set. I've got stacks of these lying around. So I've pre-cut all of these, and I thought, well, that's just great storage to store all those pre-cut pieces through. It's really cold, but fine. You're not far from Falls Creek. Yeah, it would be a bit cool. I'm waiting for our next cold snap here, which will probably happen in the next few weeks. Okay, so my idea is, now this is just an idea, I'm hoping this is going to work, is that we're going to add maybe a couple of these flowers in and around here and some leaves. I can trim this down because we can bring that across to there if I wish, and then cover some of this up. This is just really just a play. So if you've got any ideas, please post it so I know. Let's just take that right across to there. Because I just want this piece here, the medallion, to be part of the background, still to be seen. I don't want to cover it all up. I want it to be part of the card, but acting as a complementary piece to the card rather than something completely different. I think I want something possibly a little bit like that. What do you think? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start gluing some of these pieces in. I'm going to take these leaves out because they're going to be glued flat, and I'm going to work out what is going to go on dimensionals and what is not. So I know that my sentiment I'm going to pop onto dimensionals. So I'm going to pop some dimensionals on the back of that, but I'm not removing the backs of them just yet because some of these pieces we want to have adhered down. So I think this, I'm going to remove this piece here, and I think this one here I'm going to glue down, but I'm only going to put glue in the center of it. I'm not going to put glue all over it because I want to tuck leaves and different things underneath. So I'm only putting it there in the center, and I'm just going to pop that there like that. Just hold that down so that it sort of has a little bit of slip because it's gluing on the embossing. So just give that a bit of a hold down. What you can also do is grab a block and pop a block on there while you're working on your next piece. Now this piece here I want to have slightly angled, so I'm going to add a dimensional to the top, but I'm going to add glue to the bottom. I just want to pop that in like that. So that's just giving that. I don't know whether you can see it there. but it's just giving it that, so it's sitting up a little bit. Might help actually if I took the back off that one. There we go. That's better. So it's sitting up a little bit there at the back, but it's sitting down. And now I'm going to take the backs off the dimensionals on my sentiment. And we can add that sentiment going. Now I've cut this, as I said before, 10 centimeters wide. So it's going to go the same sort of width as my mat. Pop those down. This was our next flower that we were going to use. And again, it's going to sit up there on there just like that. But it's going to sit down here. But I'm going to pop a dimensional here right in the very middle just to add some support, but it's going to put a bit of glue here at the top and a bit of glue here at the bottom. I'm not putting glue around the outsides because, again, I want to still tuck things underneath. And I'm popping that flower at a little bit of an angle. Again, make sure you remove your back. Because you don't want all your flowers being straight on. Okay, so let's just hold that down a little bit just to let that glue adhere. Still looking a little bit bland at the moment, but I think by the time we add some of these leaves and that it's going to start to pop. So I'm going to add, just put a bit of glue there and add a leaf underneath there. Now these little leaves here are little ones I've hand cut, and I'm going to add one of those, I think. Just underneath. Whoops. Lift that up and just tuck that coming in underneath there. This one here, I'm going to tuck him in there. And maybe another one coming in through there. And let me just have a look. I just want another small leaf maybe. And they're all coming down here. I think just coming down there. So I've still got my medallion showing. I'm quite happy with all of that. So I've still got my medallion showing. I've still got the colour very softly coming in from underneath. But I've just added those few flowers in there. Now the next thing I want to have a look at is whether we might add a little bit of bling. But I don't want to add anything too bright. I want to keep it fairly soft. So I'm just going through all my bling here. And I mean, these ones here I know are discontinued, but it's got the colours in there that I like. Let's see what else we've got. could even just add some pearls. Even some of those. Let's just have a look. I'm just going to grab my take a pick tool. I'm just looking at these little white ones here. I think these ones might be the go. Just like little matte. This is from the Elegant Faceted Gems, which I know are still in our catalogue. And I just want to add just a couple of these. Big one there. It's a larger one. A smaller one just next to it there, and just one more here. Okay, so I've just added a few of those. Now the only other thing we need to do is add our insert piece. And what I might do for that is just to decorate that up a little bit. See if I've got this leaf, and let's have a look what we've got in here. Because when you cut out these flowers, you are left with a lot of edgy pieces, like pieces from around the edges. Instead of throwing them away, I've cut them out as well. And I just want to see what I've got in those. Let's have a look. I've got a project in mind for all of these, so that's why I've sort of been busy cutting these out. And this is just all from one sheet. So I still do have another sheet to do. I'm sort of looking maybe that, even though pop that right there on the edge. Do you have anything in the blue? Let's have a look what else we've got. I think I like that. We're just going to glue all of these down, but I'm just going to pop again a little bit of glue, really just in the centers. And I'm going to take that right off the corner there. I'm glad you like it, Deborah. It's I find this all quite relaxing, just playing around with bits and pieces like this. Now what I want to do is I've got this piece here hanging off. So I'm just going to grab my scissors and trim this down a little bit. Get This is a bit of a trim here. That's nice. I'm happy with that. Excuse me. Just center that inside my card. And there we are. So that's using the Hues of Happiness DSP along with that Pretty Medallion stamp set to create that very simple card. So I hope you've enjoyed that today. I hope you've learned something from it. Try making some of these cards yourself. Please tag me in and let me know so I can see them, and I'm sure I'll love whatever you create and show. So let me just take my camera back to myself. So I hope you've enjoyed that today. Remember, you can purchase any of these products that I've used today on my page. On my Stamping Up site. So you can just go to michellejutrissa.stampingup.net. Excuse me. Just need to. You'll find all the products that I've used there, and you can purchase those from me. If you know, or whoever your demonstrator is, if you have a demonstrator. So as I said, try make one of these cards yourself. Tag me in, because I'd love to give you lots of encouragement to create something like this yourself. And that's something that's quite simple and easy to make, and I think looks really good once it's done. And just using that medallion, I think it's gorgeous. So I've got a lot more playing to do with it because I've not long received it, and a lot more other ideas I have to use it for. So I hope you can join me again next week as we'll make something else, and I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. So thank you very, very much. I do appreciate you jumping on and leaving comments, and it's been wonderful to have you here with me creating today. So take care. Bye for now. We'll see you next week.